The Treaty of Waitangi. This part is an introduction for the benefit of those among you who, like me, know little about the Treaty of Waitangi. It is just that, an introduction. Very brief it is, and therefore liable perhaps to be a little inaccurate in places. Recognizing that Maori folk may well disagree, we will still take the Pakeha view, a Pakeha being a New Zealander of foreign descent, because it was written by a Pakeha, and a new one at that. One particular disagreement: the full timescales will extend further back, another 1,000 years or more perhaps. Another disagreement may well be the origins of the Maori folk themselves. So, you might like to reward yourself and read more. Get a book, borrow one from the library, or search the web. There's lots on the web. We'll start our little story with a particular phase of the Polynesian diaspora over the Pacific Ocean, which is said to have been the greatest migration on Earth. Why migrate? We can only exercise our imaginations and guess at what circumstances would make a people leave their homeland. Seemingly their original homeland was what is now Taiwan. This phase of the diaspora started, when? Let's say somewhere in the first millennium, possibly 500, 600, 800 AD by our reckoning. Having got that far, we now skip forward to a phase that followed their settlement of modern-day Fiji, Tonga, Samoa, which would have been around, say, 900 to 1000 AD. Imagine their journeys. Island hopping across those immense distances in canoes, albeit ocean-going twin-hulled canoes, and imagine the development work that went into them. They can't have been able to carry such a great deal in the way of people, food, and accoutrements. And one wonders how many of those voyagers actually made it to a new island. They, who we know as Maori, arrived on New Zealand somewhere around 1,000 years ago. The first known name is that of the explorer Kupe, who named the land Aotearoa. That's the land of the long white cloud streaming off the mountains. It seems likely that there were quite a few, perhaps many, expeditions landing here in several phases. Now, imagine what they must have felt on finding such a land. New Zealand isn't a particularly big island on a world scale, but compared with all their previous experience of Pacific islands, it must have been, huge. Over the next several hundred years, they developed their culture and their technology, taking things as far as they could be taken in this place that has more in the way of natural resources than their previous landings. They're making decorations and tools of wood, greenstone, jade, and obsidian. Also, of course, weapons. Shift attention now to Europe. Dutchman Abel Tasman, whom that there sea ditch is named after, landed in 1642, lost 4 of his seamen and shot several Maori. Over 100 years later, after Britain had advanced their sea power and begun to colonize the world, Captain Cook arrived in 1769, and now there were 2 warlike peoples on these islands. Trading flourished, and perhaps the most highly prized item for a Maori was a musket. A couple of 100 years of bloodletting ensued, Maori rivalries, unfriendly settlements by Europeans, including by then the French, awakening rivalries in that direction too, while newly introduced diseases took their toll as well. Not a happy time. In due course, a treaty was seen to be a good idea, and one was drawn up, with the intention of regulating the situation while being fair to both sides, Maori and British. After much and long debate, not difficult to imagine that, The treaty was signed by both sides at a small place overlooking the Bay of Islands called Waitangi. On the 6th day of February in the year 1840, that was. Some years later, after mishap and adventure, attempts were made to restore the treaty, which were not really completed until about 1980. Much has happened since the day of the signing. Continuing unrest over unfair treatment, 2 world wars with many Maori heroes, along with continuing immigration from Europe and Asia, also some from the Americas. Debate over the treaty is ongoing. Misunderstandings, faults in translation, accusations of partisanship, and, not forgetting the inevitable, failures of clarity that are inherent in any attempt to put concepts into words and to translate them. The treaty is now on display at the National Archives of the Department of Internal Affairs. A copy in both languages is on show at Te Papa, the museum, in our capital, Wellington. Ends.